You think you can just waltz in and take what's mine?" That's what I yelled, my voice carrying down the block, echoing off the tidy lawns and perfectly trimmed hedges like some old Western showdown. Only instead of dust and tumbleweeds, I was staring at a bright red Tesla parked smack in front of my driveway again. I swear it caught the afternoon sun in a way that almost dared me to lose my mind right then and there. That was Karen's son's car, you know, the type shiny, expensive, and always right where it shouldn't be. And if I'm honest, that was the third time this week that kid had taken my spot, grinning at me from behind those tinted windows like he owned the street. Now I woke up that morning thinking I'd finally have a quiet Saturday, maybe mow the yard, grab coffee on the porch, normal stuff, right? But instead, here I am staring down this smug kid who can't even bother to wave, just sits there revving the engine, making sure I know he's not moving. At first I tried to play it cool, you know, be neighborly. "Hey, that's my spot," I'd say, polite as pie. And every time he'd just smirk, sometimes even crank up the music and act like he couldn't hear a word. I did my best to let it slide, but patience runs out real fast when it starts to feel like someone's testing you just for sport. Today, though, today was the day I decided enough was enough. So there I was standing in my yard, eyeing every tool I owned like I was about to storm the beaches at Normandy, not deal with some bratty neighbor. I didn't want to make a scene. God knows Karen lives for drama, but I wanted to make sure her precious Tesla would remember this spot and think twice before rolling up next time. I took my time, studied the car from every angle, looked at those tires low profile, probably cost more than my first car, figured out exactly how to make my point without stepping over the line. Well, not by much anyway. Let me back up a sec, Karen. She's not just any neighbor. She's the kind that joins the HOA before the boxes are even unpacked, the one who brings her own pen to meetings so she can take notes. And her son's spoiled rotten. She's got connections, she knows people, and she'll burn down the block if she thinks it'll get her a free lunch. I couldn't risk going toe-to-toe with her and coming up empty, so I had to be smart. I rehearsed it all in my head, my plan, my alibi, even how I'd explain it if someone came asking. Then just as the sun started dipping low, I backed my old trailer up real quiet, right up to that Tesla heart pounding like I was about to rob a bank. The whole street was dead silent. The kind of quiet that only happens right before something blows up, except this time it was literal. With one move, I set the plan in motion, a metallic crunch, the hiss of air, a whine of metal bending where it shouldn't. And just like that, Karen's son's Tesla was reduced to a sorry pile of expensive parts right there in my driveway. I stepped back, hands shaking, grinning like a fool. That was it. The line had been drawn. Next morning, you could feel the tension in the air, electric, like the air before a thunderstorm. Word spread fast by sunrise. Neighbors were peeking through blinds, pretending to walk their dogs, just to get a look. I saw a few folks shake their heads, but I caught more than one smile too, like they'd been waiting for someone to finally take a stand. Karen came marching over, red-faced and ready for war, didn't even bother to knock. "What did you do to my son's car?" she snapped, practically vibrating with rage. I just shrugged, looked her dead in the eye, and told her the truth. He kept taking my spot. This ends now. She threatened police, lawyers, the whole 9 yards, but her voice cracked like she knew she was bluffing. Didn't take long before the cops showed up, 2 of them calm but all business, taking notes, snapping pictures, talking about property disputes and criminal damage. I'll admit, for a second, my stomach did a backflip. Karen's son showed up too, acting like a victim, phone glued to his ear, parents fuming, talking about lawsuits and repairs and public humiliation. Suddenly, my quiet little war had turned into the main event on the street. Some folks cheered me on in hushed tones, others just looked worried, like maybe this would end up being everyone's problem. That night I sat on my porch, replaying it all. Was it worth it? Had I finally crossed a line I couldn't uncross? I'd meant to make a point, not start a neighborhood scandal. But then again, I'd spent years watching folks like Karen act like the rules didn't apply. Maybe it was time someone reminded them. Just as I'm about to head inside Marcia, my neighbor across the street, old but sharp as a tack, walks up and hands me an envelope. You might want to read this, she says. Inside, a letter from Karen's lawyer threatening every kind of legal hell you can imagine unless I pay up, apologize, and basically admit defeat. Felt heavy in my hand, heavier than you'd think for a couple sheets of paper. But you know what? I wasn't about to back down. I spent the next few hours digging through insurance, reading up on HOA rules, looking for any crack in their armor. If this was going to court, I'd be ready. By that evening, Karen and her son came back angrier than before, demanding payment, threatening more police. I just leaned against my fence, cool as you please, told them flat out, "You knew the rules when you moved here. Maybe now you'll respect them." Her son tried to square up, fists clenched, breathing heavy, but I didn't budge. Didn't have to. Instead, I opened my garage and rolled out the remains of the Tesla piece by piece, laid out like some kind of modern art display for the whole block to see. Wasn't vandalism, wasn't an accident, it was a consequence. Every scratched wheel, every crumpled panel sitting in plain sight. The street was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, neighbors whispering, peeking out, probably texting each other about the show. Karen's face went pale, then red, then something in between, realizing maybe, just maybe, her son had finally bitten off more than he could chew. "You'll regret this," she spat, but her words felt empty. I spent the rest of the night documenting every detail, photos, receipts, even the lawyer's letter. If they wanted a legal war, I was ready. But more than that, I was satisfied. The message was simple: entitlement stops where respect begins. Next morning, the whole neighborhood was buzzing, some folks calling me a hero, others worried about what would come next. Karen was on the phone nonstop trying to spin the story her way, but everywhere she went, folks just gave her that look, the one like, maybe you had this coming. Her son kept his head down, didn't dare look my way. You could see it in his eyes. The lesson had sunk in deeper than any fine or ticket ever could. By noon, Karen stormed over again, hands clenched, voice trembling. "This isn't over. You'll pay for every single part. I just pointed to the driveway. It already cost what it needed to." Respect. She searched my face for a crack, anything, but found nothing. People started gathering, quiet but curious, waiting for the final act. Then, in a move that shocked everyone, her son stepped forward, voice low, eyes on the ground, and said, "I get it. I won't park there again. That's all it took." Karen froze, blindsided by her own kid's surrender. The fight was over just like that. Karen retreated, mumbling threats no one took seriously, while her son stared at what was left of his pride, finally understanding what his mother never could. I cleaned up the driveway that afternoon, kept a few pieces of the Tesla as souvenirs, maybe call it my own little victory trophy. Wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about balance. About showing that sometimes you've got to draw a line and defend it, or folks will walk all over you. And as the sun set, painting the street gold and calm for the first time in weeks, I leaned back and smiled. The Tesla was gone, the lesson was learned, and for once it felt like the world had tipped back in the right direction. So now I gotta ask, if you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Where do you draw the line between standing up for yourself and going too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about justice, pride, and what it really means to be a good neighbor. And if you like this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and share your own run-in with a stubborn neighbor. Sometimes standing your ground is the only way forward, you know what I mean?